Hi, I'm Chris Short, and I want to tell you in this video about the amazing medieval hermitage at Pontefract and why it's been out of bounds to the public for the last 10 years. So in the video I'll explain what the hermitage is, what we know about its history. I'll tell you what happened 10 years ago to the water level in there, which has caused us problems which we're trying to solve. I'll tell you what investigations have been carried out to identify what happened and why, and what solutions we've identified to the problem. And I'll tell you about the progress that we've made, although I might as well say straight away that there's been very little progress made, and that's one of the reasons why we're making the video and giving various talks around the country. We want to draw attention to this plight of the hermitage and try to get some action in the near future from the parties responsible. Of course, I'll be telling you about who they are and how I got involved later in the video. But first, I'll explain to you, because you won't all know, where Pontefract is. So you'll find Pontefract in Yorkshire, about 300 kilometres north of London. It's in West Yorkshire, in fact, and it's in the east of the county there, just between the M62 and the A1. Pontefract, it's a historic market town with a number of medieval features. For instance, it's got a Norman castle, naturally in ruins, but plenty to see. It's got some medieval courts off the marketplace, and one of them has got this amazing timber frame building, the Counting House pub, which is unfortunately in a terrible state now since that photograph was taken. And then this is an aerial view of the town centre. In the centre there you can see the marketplace, and then here to the south of the centre is a road called Southgate. And below Southgate, the level of the land falls away very sharply into the valley, and at the bottom of the valley there you can see what is now Friarwood Gardens, a park, but there used to be a friary there, and there's no visible remains left. And just to the right of there you can see the former site of the Pontefract Infirmary, which we'll be talking a lot about. What is the Hermitage? It is a dwelling carved out of the solid sandstone in the side of that cliff below Southgate back in medieval times, and the first record we have of it is 1385, when Sir Robert de Lacy recorded that he was leaving it to his brother Adam, or maybe brother Adam, for life. And whether or not it was originally a bit of a cave in the hillside, we don't know, but it's been very much enlarged by the hermits by hand, excavating the solid rock. This visualization is something I found in Pontefract Museum, and it shows the hermit tending his bit of a garden on a ledge down below Southgate there, and that is also based on what records there are. Obviously there must have been a succession of hermits living there until the Reformation, and after that the hermitage was incorporated in a private garden, and in Victorian times the then owner donated the garden, including the hermitage, to the township in order that they could build a dispensary, which is like a prototype hospital. And that Victorian building, the dispensary, is still there on Southgate. Behind the dispensary, as you see it there, the land falls away sharply, and to get to the hermitage you go in at a floor below the one that you can see there at ground level, and then into the chambers that were excavated by the hermits. And the hermitage well, which we'll be particularly talking about, is now directly underneath that lamppost you see in the middle of Southgate there, about 15 metres down below the surface of the road there. So looking again at that aerial photograph, the dispensary is here on the south of Southgate, and the hermitage is underneath the road in front. Now here is a drawing in plan and section of the hermitage, so we can see here the Victorian buildings, and there are two entrances into the medieval hermitage. The first one here is into what we call the oratory. That's a semicircular sort of chamber where we believe the hermit had an altar and sleeping accommodation and a fireplace. And then through the other entrance you go down a long sloping passage, and then the amazing bit, 4 turns of a spiral staircase down to a basement at the bottom in which there is water. So you could interpret it as the hermit wanting to have a private water supply and going to a lot of trouble, over how many months or years we don't know, to carve all that out of solid rock. No doubt a succession of hermits actually, rather than just the one. And one thing we don't know is, one thing of many things we don't know, is why it goes down this more or less horizontal passage first before it goes down vertically. One possible explanation is that he knew there were other caves below him and he couldn't go straight downwards. If that is the case, we've no idea where those caves are now. So there may be another explanation, but we certainly don't know what it is. But the work involved in creating that almost perfect spiral staircase is just phenomenal when you imagine the hermit head down in the hole, chipping away with a chisel and bolster. Now, in this aerial photograph, we can see the dispensary here, and then to the right there, to the east, there's the new Pontefract Hospital, which started construction in 2007. I'm going to now move on to what happened in 2007 to 9 to the well's water level. On the aerial photograph, I've shown how at the back of the new hospital building, they first excavated into the hillside and built a retaining wall. And that is there in relation to the location of the hermitage. So after the construction of the main hospital, in early 2008, they began to excavate into this bit of hillside here to build what they call the energy centre. And as they excavated into that hillside, water gushed out. It was said to be like a fire hydrant, and they had to deploy pumps to keep the excavation dry while they finished the work. And at the same time as that water gushed out, it was found that the water level in the Hermitage well dropped down within the basin, which hadn't been seen before, and we don't think it was a coincidence. Now, in this other aerial view, you can see that the back of the excavation, they now built this retaining wall, and once they'd built that, the water level in the well began to increase, and it steadily increased slowly, but by the beginning of 2009, it had come up several steps, and the curators of the well were sufficiently concerned to get in touch with me to ask if I would like to come and have a look, and I went down to see what was going on. So at this point I need to mention various parties involved. Take the Hermitage. Who does that belong to? Well, it belongs to the Mid Yorkshire Hospitals NHS Trust. They owned the former Pontefract General Infirmary, which incorporated the old Victorian dispensary, and so the Hermitage as well. And the Trust are still the owners of the Hermitage, but they commissioned the new Pontefract Hospital under a private finance initiative, and that was built and owned by Balfour Beatty starting in 2007. Balfour Beatty have subsequently sold the hospital to another finance consortium called HICL, and the Trust lease the hospital from them. So the Trust don't own anything on the hospital site, but they do own the Hermitage still. And the Hermitage is a Grade 1 listed monument, so Historic England, the organisation that deals with such listings, has an oversight responsibility. And the Pontefract and District Archaeological Society have been providing volunteers to admit the public to the Hermitage on open days and so on, and also to check it regularly with the cooperation of the Trust. So I call them the curators. Pontarch are the curators of the Hermitage. So moving on, what investigations were carried out into the problem that had arisen, and what did they conclude? I visited the site at Pontarch's invitation early 2009, and this view is looking down from Southgate into the bottom of the valley, and you see there the energy centre and here the retaining wall that was built. And when that retaining wall was being built, that's where the water gushed out, and then once the wall had been completed, the level in the well began to increase. So my interpretation was this: here's the approximate ground level coming from Southgate down the slope into the bottom of the valley. They excavated into that hillside and they intercepted the water table, so water gushed out there. And then once they'd built the retaining wall, that interfered with the flow of water through the ground, and inevitably the level behind that upstream, if you like, increased a little, but enough to cause us the problems that we've been experiencing at the well. And since then, there have been a number of professional investigations into it, commissioned by the Trust particularly,